Hi, this is Matt.
And this is Shannon.
And this is the story of our engagement.
Yay!
Well, it's kind of an interesting story, and it all began a few years ago when we went down to Chicago to check out the Museum of Science and Industry's Leonardo da Vinci exhibit. It turns out that they went to his original manuscripts and they built all of the things that he had designed out of period materials, and they made them full size. But at the very end of the display, they also had a tie-in with a really big movie at the time called
The Da Vinci Code.
That's right. In the Da Vinci Code, they had this really cool thing. What is it called, honey?
It's a cryptex. It's like a cylindrical vault, and it's two tubes. One slides into the other tube, and you have to line up different rings of letters on the outside of the outer tube to open the vault.
Well, unfortunately, she thought that was the coolest thing in the exhibit. Here I was all happy to see all the original, works by Leonardo, but then she was so interested in the cryptics, I thought that was kind of funny. But I remembered it, because guys are supposed to remember stuff that their girls like.
Absolutely they are.
So, after we went and saw the presentation, I immediately went home and tried to figure out how they had made that for the prop for the movie. And so I called the movie people, and I found out there's this guy named Justin who actually makes cryptics for people. And so I decided to have him make one for Shannon. And of course, Shannon, her name has 7 letters, and so it had to have 7 dials on it. And so as you turn the dials and spelled her name, it would open up. And then on the inside, they laser engraved, "Will you make snow angels with me for the rest of our lives and be my wife?" Now, the reason why I had them put that in the center of it is I don't have any legs, and so when I make snow angels, they look really funny. And so I really never felt comfortable making snow angels with anybody until I was with Shannon. And one morning we woke up, and I looked at her after it had a nice fresh snow in Wisconsin. I said, "Honey, will you make snow angels with me?" And she said yes, and it was great, and we went out and made snow angels. But later on in the day she said, when you asked me that question, and I was like, yeah, she said, well, I thought you were going to ask me something else, and I would have said yes to that too. And I was like, well, there you go. And so I knew she liked me, and I knew I really liked her, and so I knew we had to have this cryptics made, and so I did. And then it came, and gosh, I must have had it in the garage for a couple of years before I found the perfect way to give it to her. And so yeah, I kept it in the garage in a little white box in my man cave where I know she would never explore, and it was perfect. I just had to find the perfect way to give it to her. And so what I thought of is kind of a situation almost like a scavenger hunt, but she didn't know that she would be in the scavenger hunt. And I knew she liked some things, and so I tried to set up this experience for her that once we were down in Chicago, one of our favorite cities to visit, she would just kind of decide that she would want to go certain places and things would happen. And so what I did was, the week before Valentine's Day weekend, this last Valentine's Day weekend, I went down to one of Shannon's favorite stores called the Golden Triangle. And I went in and I made the deal with the salesperson that on Friday, about 4 o'clock, I think my girlfriend and I, Shannon at the time, would be,
I would hope so.
would be walking by their store, and she would suggest that she wanted to go in. And then we'd go in, and she'd be walking around, and then if they would be kind enough to keep the cryptics out, she would see it. And then she would find it, and she would really like it, and she would want it. And then I thought I would know her well enough, and I know how she loves puzzles, that she would actually try and put her name in. And it would open up, and she would read it, and she would basically ask herself to marry me. And so now I just had to try and make that happen. And so what we did is we left the cryptics there. I had the engagement ring inside of it. I also put the engagement ring on a piece of wood rock candy. And then I also included a little jade frog because she loves frogs. And in Japan, the frog is a symbol of return. And so many times I'll go away for business, and when I come home, she's there in her loving arms waiting for me to come back and be her man again. And so between the rock candy and the frog, I figured that was kind of cool to have those on the inside of the cryptics. So I left the cryptics down there, and when Friday rolled around, I told her that we should just go down and do some fun things in Chicago. We had a trip to the museum planned, and then later on in the evening, there was a River North dance troupe performance that we were going to go to. And in between, I knew, based on the layout of the city, that we would be walking right by her favorite store, the Golden Triangle. And so it was about 3:45 in the afternoon, and we're starting to walk by, and all of a sudden she sees the Golden Triangle, and she goes, "Hey, let's go there." I was like, "Oh, really? Come on. Really? Do you want to go there?" And she's like, "Yeah, let's go." So, of course, we did. And then we kind of walked in and kind of looked around, and she saw it right away. She saw the cryptics just laying there in her favorite room, right on the side of the four-post bed. And she saw it, and she's like, "Oh, my goodness." And I said, "What?" She goes, "It's a cryptics." And I'm like, "What's that?" I was trying to play dumb, so I wouldn't give any kind of, idea that I knew anything was up. And she's like, "It's a cryptics." And I said, "Well, what's that?" And she said, "It's from the Leonardo da Vinci Code movie." And she said, "We saw one earlier when we went to that exhibit." And I went, "Oh, yeah. And I said, "So what do you want to do?" And she goes, "Well, I don't know. I want to learn about it." So we went over and we brought over a salesperson who stuck to the script that I had written for them perfectly. They explained that it was from Europe, and they didn't really know what they should charge for it because they had gotten it in, but they didn't know what the code was. They knew something was inside, but without the code, they didn't know how valuable it would be to anybody. So he actually went through the whole script with Shannon, and it just piqued her interest, and she was very interested in trying to figure out what the code was. But she said to me, "Gosh, there's 26 letters on each one, and there's 7 dials. That's at least 7 to the power of 7. I don't have our 26 to the power of 7, so that'd be so many different choices." So we kind of set it down, we walked around, and then she's like, "I kind of want to go back and check it out again." And I said, "Well, geez, honey, you really want to?" And she said, "Yeah." And so as she's walking back, she goes, "Gosh, I wonder what's inside. Maybe an engagement ring." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, honey, not an engagement ring." She's like, "I don't know." And see, she went back, she picked it up, and she put her name in, just like I knew she would. And all of a sudden I saw it in her eye, the glistening twinkle in her eye, the little tear that swelled up because she put her name in, and then we jiggled it a little bit, it opened up, and then she read it, and then she took out the ring, and then she said yes.
And I said yes.
Yes, she did. And so the best part of it was I really thought I knew her well enough to be able to set up a situation where, kind of like in a Choose Your Own Adventure book, she would make all of the choices herself, but in the end, all of her choices would lead to me. And that's exactly what happened. And so we're getting married on July 30th, 2011.
Yay! Such a good story.
Love you, baby.
Love you too.